All right. Well, thank you for agreeing to do this. Um, would you like to start your story at the beginning? Where you, where were you born? What's your name?
My name is Brian Hooker and I'm 83.
83.
I was born in Wanganui on the 22nd of October 1941. My mother was a good looking woman and in fact I've got a photo of you somewhere. But anyway, good looking woman. And so was my dad, really.
Yeah.
That's where I get my good looks from, you see. However, he had one flaw that I don't think Mum took very seriously during their relationship as it grew. And that is that he was a drinker. And that's awful because when they got married, I mean, he exposed himself. Back in those days, you had 6 o'clock closing of the pubs.
Yeah.
And so guys would have to rush as fast as they could to get to the pub and drink as much as they could before they shut the doors and said, that's it.
After work and stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what would happen with Dad. He'd come home drunk. Mum always made sure, or made every effort to make sure we children, I got a brother and 2 sisters.
Yeah.
Mum would make sure that we were safely tucked into bed and probably asleep before Dad stumbled into the house. And then he would start attacking her. And like, for instance, let me give you an example of what Dad did. On one occasion, and I was only a little guy myself, I walked up the steps and into the kitchen because of the noise that was coming from the kitchen. And there was my father sitting on the table, kitchen table, with a smile on his face, his legs swinging backwards and forwards under the table. Turn the camera around, and there's my mother hunched up on the floor, and the man over the back fence there kicking her and punching her. And she was sobbing her little heart out. Yeah, that was so wrong. I mean, he shouldn't have been like that. But it was the alcohol that did it.
Yeah.
It wasn't Dad himself. I think take the alcohol away and he was a different guy. He was a lot better.
Yeah.
But it just sort of seemed to become a craving in him.
Yeah.
So when I was 7, Mum left my father.
Yeah.
He came home one day from the pub on a Saturday, and my brother and I were there, but my two sisters were gone, as Mum was gone too, taking a few clothes with her, and she went to live with her mum and dad for a while. So we moved out of the house into my father's mum and dad, grandma and granddad. And
were you oldest, middle child, youngest?
I was number 1.
You're the oldest?
Yeah, I'm the oldest.
Okay.
So, yeah, we lived with Dad for a while until eventually we were able to get back to living with Mum.
Yeah.
Mum had 4 children. So,
I think it's 12 o'clock lunchtime.
thank you. Very good. And so, yeah, then the solicitor engineered things, so eventually we went back to Mum. He, my father, would actually go into jail, be put in jail, because he wouldn't pay maintenance. So what do you think that Dad did to Mum? She scarcely got enough money to be able to look after her family.
Okay.
So she developed a very close relationship with God. And I remember on one occasion, now living in 19 Alexander Street, that's the house that Mum bought. We were living there, and Mum had said to us, "We've got nothing to have for tea tonight, and I've got no money." And within probably an hour, there was a knock on the door. When I opened it, it was me that opened up the door, and there was Mr. Madder, a pensioner from across the road. And he said, "I just thought you might be interested in a few veggies from my garden." And he produced this big bag full of vegetables from his garden. He was a king gardener.
Yeah.
And so that night we sat there and ate like kings and queens. It was nice. But it was really the alcohol that killed the marriage.
Were you ever a big drinker because of that, or you
No.
just had completely?
No, I did for a while when I was started working. I go off to the club I was a JC, member of JCs.
Yeah.
And a group of us would go down and have a few drinks, and I started drinking a bit, and I particularly like sherry.
Oh, okay.
And sherry was good, and I was happy chappy until it started to wear off. And when it started to wear off, I found myself getting a little bit mean, and things like that. And but what changed all that really was when I started going to the life group. Now, at the time that I'm talking about, I had a shop called Gene Country. All the other places called their shops Gene City. Well, I was living in Tamanui, a country town, so I called my shop Gene Country. And it was one of the gunniest little jean shops I'm sure you would ever hope to see. And it was Tamanui is sort of fairly isolated, and I had really no competition.
Yeah.
Who else had a jean shop? Closest jean shop after me was probably Tikawiti. Is it Tikawiti? Yeah, Tikawiti.
I don't even know where that is.
Yeah.
So, after you moved back in with Mum,
yeah.
did you ever see much of your dad again, or?
No, not a lot. I mean, sometimes we'd go in for the day or something like that, not because we wanted to, but because that was what the arrangement was.
Yeah.
But like, did I say that Dad was thrown in jail on a number of different occasions because he refused to pay maintenance?
Yeah, yeah.
So that was that memory was one of God's provision, because Mum had nothing. And for him to come across and
give us
the veggies, and that was amazing.
Yeah.
But lots of things happened like that for Mum. And so she developed a close relationship with God.
Yeah.
She remarried when I was 13. And the man she remarried was a kind man. He was kind. He was a shy man, so he hadn't had any experience with women or anything like that.
Yeah.
When he went off to war, he heard all kinds of tales of what guys got up to.
Yeah.
But Rob never did. He wasn't that sort of guy. And it was, quite significant of him that he would take on a divorced woman.
4 kids.
With 4 kids.
Yeah. And you said you were 13, so you're not young.
Not at that point.
No, you're going into high school and.
Yeah. my uncle was a teacher one part of it, and one part of my schooling, I mean.
Yeah.
And I was in his class, and one day the bell rang, and the class captain said, "Get out the front, you're fighting." So we'd just come back into the class, and just before the bell, this guy and I were just roughing it a bit, and then he said, "You stand out the front." And so the two of us stood out the front. What surprised me, and got the cane, man did it hurt, but the other guy, his name's Johnny Tahima, he cried. Now, I thought he was a tough, but
But you didn't cry?
no. And then my auntie, would you believe, the woman he married, was also a school teacher at the same school.
Oh, so you were...
Yeah, but I didn't go into her class.
Yeah.
So, and then I came home one day, and this is a little bit of Rob's influence, I think, and my mum said, you know, have you thought much about what you'd like to do when you leave school? And I hadn't given it any thought. And so it's like she was almost prepared. She said, "Well, listen, there's a place called Flock House." I've got a photo of it here. So if I go like that, I wonder if the camera will pick it up.
Maybe not, but I can show a picture if I...
Okay.
I'll find the way.
Okay. But Flock House was a farm of instruction where people would go, and they go for a year. So you go at the beginning of the year, which means you're finished up in December, or you go in the middle of the year, which was June, and you went through to the following May. And during that time, you did all sorts of courses, like learning to shear sheep. I was on abattoirs, they called it, but where we killed the sheep and dressed it and everything. And then maybe the following week I was on shearing, and then the following week I was on tractor work, and so on. So that by the time you finish the year that you were on, you had a fairly basic idea on all the sorts of things you're likely to encounter working on a farm.
Yeah.
And so I did that. Shall I tell you? No, I won't tell you. I've got too much to say. So then when we finished, we went into jobs. They did what they could to find us a job on a farm. And I started...
How old were you when you finished?
I'd have been 17 probably.
17.
Yeah, it's where I started smoking. Isn't that awful? Because everyone smoked, and before long I was smoking.
Yeah.
But God got rid of that in later years, if you remind me.
Yeah, okay. So you finished up?
Yeah, so I went out farming, and I had some dogs. I bought some dogs, but they weren't very good dogs. And so, you know, I'd sort of tell the dog what to do, and the dog didn't understand, or, you know, didn't do it. And it was just a bit of a pain at times. Until Hugh Griffiths came to work with us, and then one of his dogs had some pups, and he said, "Take your choice which one you'd like." And I selected one, and I called him Griff, after Hugh Griffiths. And he was an amazing dog. I just loved that dog so much. Not just him, but then other dogs that I got as well, because I was into the bloodline.
Yeah.
And I could grow my own dogs.
So there was definitely some dogs that were smarter than others?
Yep, absolutely. Well, I better be careful on what I say, because each dog was good,
Okay.
probably better than good, very good. And so, how do you judge a dog? If that one is very good, and that one's very good, and that one over there is very good,
Yeah.
you end up with a good team of dogs. And I did. I remember going off to, I was told about the young farmers, those that belong to young farmers. And periodically, like once a year, they would have dog trials.
Okay.
And the manager of the property that I was on at the time urged me to go to the dog trials and enter a dog. So I took 3 dogs with me. I took Griff,
Yeah.
a dog I called Nig. He was a beardy dog. And I took my little heading dog, Merle. I named her Merle because I named her after a girlfriend, an old girlfriend I had at the time. And we went to the dog trials, and I entered Nig and Griffin the straight hunt. You had to take your dog up. They put 3 sheep out, and you were back in the circle. And when the judge said go, then he pushed the stopwatch, because you had to do it all in a certain amount of time. And then you'd let your dog go, send your dog, and he would go up towards them barking, and he would sort of be careful and push them up the hill and through the pegs and on up to the finishing point. Now, the big thing was to keep them bunched together.
Yeah.
Don't frighten them so that they go in all directions, because then it's hopeless, and
You're not going to win.
no, you're not going to win, that was for sure. So I did that with Griff, and he did a good time, and he completed it. And then I got Nig, my dog Nig. I'd had him for quite a while, and he was a little bit more the sort of dog where you had to tell him just about when to bark, when to stop barking, or when to go this way, when to go that way, come back this way, or whatever. You had to instruct him on everything. But he would hear you and he would obey you. So, for instance, if I had a young pup doing a little bit of work out there and he mucked things up, I'd get Nig in to sort it out.
And you would copy and
Yeah.
very often.
Yeah. So anyway, Nig, he started off in the same place. When the judge said go and push the stopwatch, Nig started to make his way up the hill, chasing the 3 sheep, up through the pegs, and then finished the course. And then a bit later on, I went to the heading dog event, and I rang Merle. She had to, when I was told to go, Merle ran up beyond where the sheep were, and then steadily started bringing the sheep down the hill through the pegs to the circle I was standing in. And then at the end of the day, I got a first, a second, and a third with my 3 dogs.
It's pretty good.
Merle got a first, and Griff would have got a first, and then Nig, he probably got a second or something like that.
Yeah.
But that was my experience with that. I did it. I ran my dogs in the 3 different dog trials, 3 different years.
Yeah.
And I got first, second, and third with all 3 dogs each year.
So you were the person to beat. You were the one to.
Yeah.
And how long did you do shepherding for?
Gee.
So right out of high school through till.
Probably. I was married, so I'd have been about 24.
Oh, okay.
Through till I was about 24. And 2 things happened. In that one, I made friends with a guy who had a furniture shop in town. I bought a lounge suite off him, and that's where it all started. And the second thing, because he offered me a job.
Okay.
And the thing that also bugged me was the fact that I started to see shepherding as a bit of a dead-end job. Was I going to be doing shepherding for the rest of my life?
There's not much more you can do
No,
with shepherding than herding the sheep.
that's right. And same with, like, you'll always be pegged in a way, no matter how good you are, you're not going to earn a hang of a lot, are you?
Yeah.
Working as a shepherd.
And I guess you'd have to save up a long time to be able to have your own farm or your own
You'd
flock.
never get a farm.
You'd never, okay.
Not on a shepherd's wages.
Okay.
So the day came when I decided, right, because Clive Forlong offered me a job in the shop and it started to build in my mind. I took my dogs down to the sale yards. I sold my dogs and my horse. I think I've got a picture of him somewhere, which I'd love to show you. Here he is. The big one's the horse.
Was that hard letting go of your dogs and your horse? And
Very. It really was. Because I love my dogs.
yeah.
Let me tell you a little bit about my dogs. Well, young Rogue. Okay, here's two dogs together.
Okay.
But I'll tell you Rogue. Rogue was one of Flo's pups. When he was 3 or 4 months of age, I started bringing him along with us and encouraging him in little ways. As we walked along behind a mob of sheep one day, I urged him to run out and push the sheep along a little bit faster. I soon discovered that Rogue didn't know how to bark. Instead he roared, if you can imagine that. Go Rogue! I laughed and laughed every time I heard him, which only encouraged him more. He was a little beauty, always eager to help out, with good stock sense. I could see he would be have a significant place in my pack of incredible dogs. Just quietly, I appreciated that dog and I was so proud of him, I reckoned I was the envy of everyone who saw him in action. Go Rogue, I said. So yeah, it was a significant day when I sold my dogs. Griff, I couldn't sell him. I just, he was given to me and I could not sell that dog. And same with Merle, I couldn't sell her.
Yeah.
Until one day, the guy that owned the furniture shop, his brother came to visit him. His brother had a farm in Tauranga and came to visit Clive and then said, listen, where's that guy with those dogs that I met last time I came down? And Morangi had purchased a bull, Poll Angus bull, from Aberdeen in Scotland and brought it across. So he came out to have a look at the bull, and I walked down towards the paddock with my dogs, and in the paddock before where the bull was, I said, you stay here, wait here. And they all waited there. We went down and looked at the bull, and then we came back, and there were all my dogs waiting for me.
Still waiting.
And the other guy, the other farmer, he was so surprised. So,
So your dogs ended up going to his farm down in Tauranga?
and he said, I want to buy that dog. I was reluctant to sell her, but I did. And the last I heard for quite a while was that little dog lay in her kennel day after day for 3 months. She refused to come out. And he used to go and have to grab the chain and pull her out so she got sun on the body. She was pining after me. She was a one-manner. So sad. So let's move on.
Okay. So you've got all these pages here from your book.
Yeah.
Why? What made you want to write a book? And I see a lot of it's about shepherding. A lot of it's
No,
about...
it's not.
No?
No, that's only a portion. I'll see if I've got the picture of the guy.
But you've written this book, and what was
My journey, here we go.
my journey?
So this guy, that guy there,
Yeah.
came over from South Africa to New Zealand with his wife and his daughter, and came to our church, and we sort of became friends.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had a cyst growing on beside my brain, and it caused me to vomit quite often, twice a day.
Okay.
And so it was necessary to get that cyst out. But after the operation, I found that I was forgetting a lot of things, and I thought, this isn't good. Here I am at this point. I was the head of a group of guys that would meet together every month, I think, and share, and sometimes have a guest speaker. But here's me, the leader of the group, often forgetful. I couldn't remember things.
Yeah.
And I thought, this isn't good. I think I should get someone else to take over leadership. Well, Vasu put his hand up and said, I'll do it.
Yeah.
And then he said, and you become my 2IC. And that's the way it's worked out since. So he's a good friend. We're often sitting together in church. And yes. And he's the guy that said to me, why don't you write a book? Because I've seen things you've written and it's quite good. So it got me pondering about, maybe I should. A book about my life. And then the next time I saw him, he said, have you started that book yet? Which was another prod.
Yeah.
So I did. I just started to concentrate on writing down various things that God really drew to my attention. He reminded me of this, he reminded me of that, and all sorts of things like that.
Yeah.
Which meant at the end of the day, I've written this book, and the size of the book when I publish it is about that size. So did I mention before about Merle?
Yes.
I think I'll get off the subject of dogs now.
It's up to you. So then, after you did shepherding, you went and you started working at the furniture store.
No, that was a pain.
Hated it.
I didn't like it. I didn't like the restriction. You know, being confined in a shop
Yeah.
half the size of this house or something.
And you'd gone married at this point, or
I was married when I was on the farm.
on the farm?
I had to get married.
You had to.
Had to.
Why is that?
Because she's pregnant.
Oh, okay.
So,
That is a good reason.
yeah. So, she's a good wife and that, but I think she had had a bit of a gay life before she got married, and after 11 years of marriage, we had 2 children, boy and a girl, Michael and Megan. She wasn't altogether happy in the marriage, and started to look around for excitement that you might get beyond the marriage. And eventually she said, that's it, I'm leaving you.
Yeah.
And that's what happened. But was as a result of the breakup of my marriage that I was so broken.
Yeah.
And I got down on my knees and I said, God, please help me. And that was the beginning of the change that took place in my life. This girl, Fran, who used to work with Kathy as a nurse in the hospital, started coming into my shop, my jean shop, and she said, come to this meeting, come to this house group meeting. It's in someone's house. You'll really enjoy it. And because I was hurting so much, I finally agreed to go.
Mm.
And I went, and the guy that was in charge, John Haddo, and his wife Shirley, welcomed me. I felt really welcomed. And then he opened up with prayer, and then we sang a few songs, Christian songs. Don't know that I knew them, but I'd had quite a churchy upbringing as a child.
Yeah.
Used to sing in the church choir and things like that. And then he moved into the main message, and it's just the presence of God, coupled with things that he said, I guess, that touched me in such a significant way that the pain that I was feeling through losing my children and the marriage weighed so heavily on my heart. But as a result of going to that meeting for the first time, somehow that pain was moved to one side, and it was replaced with a fresh and a new exciting love for Jesus.
Yeah.
And that's what changed me, where I asked Jesus to forgive me for the wrong things that I'd done and come into my heart and into my life, and that I wanted to be his forever.
Yeah.
So, that has impacted my life tremendously.
And that joy and that happiness still here today.
Grew. Yeah, isn't that nice?
It is.
Yes. So my first marriage, and then 7 years later, I married Joy, and she just the joy of my life. There she is. It's Joy when I married her. I couldn't believe it for a while, because here was I. Here was I, having been married before, had 2 children, and then this girl, she was asked, she put her hand up to volunteer to run a group, a nurture group, after Luis Palau came to New Zealand. He's from Argentina, and conducted a number of crusades around the country. And when he came to Hamilton, which is where I was going, to the Elim Church in Hamilton, and they said, are there any volunteers in your churches who would be prepared to run a nurture group? And this girl, Joy, put her hand up, and then someone else did in our church, so we had 2. And then the pastor, and his name was Les Kovic, he's dead now, but he quietly came to me and he said, Brian, would you mind going to that nurture group and just encouraging Joy, because Joy was only young. She was in her early 20s.
Yeah.
And here she was leading this group. I thought it was quite plucky of her, actually. But she was sincere in all that she was doing. And the pastor just quietly asked me to join the group and just have encouraging, supporting evidence of things as she spoke.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, that reminds me of, and I'd give some example that tied in with what she was talking about, supporting her. So, yes, I married Joy, and we've been married now for over 30 years. We're in our 34th year now, I think. Yeah. So, see, I'm not following my script, Josiah, and it's not my fault, is it?
No, you're doing a great job.
Thank you. So,
And obviously you married Joy and you have Joy.
yes. Yep.
And you're 83.
83.
You still go for your walks. You still walk around with a smile. You got a firm handshake. You talk to everyone you see.
Yeah. It's so interesting. That just sort of brings up a point. When I moved to the Elam Church here in Auckland, we decided, having sort of prayed about it, because Joy, by the way, had gone to Carey Baptist College, and she went through and got her degree and then her master's degree.
Yeah.
So she's got high qualification. And I actually was working there as a caretaker. I'd mow the lawns, cut the hedges, do a lot of painting, because I was quite good at painting, and they got me to do one job, and one job went to two, to several. I painted all their houses. They own 4 houses, and I painted 3 of them, and the other 2 didn't require much paint.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then I bought this magnetic sweeping business, and that was boy, God was so good giving us that business.
You've done a lot of different things.
A lot of different things. There we go. So we ended up with this business. There's our car at the time, got different now, and the truck, and the caravan behind the truck.
Yeah.
So the truck pulled the caravan, and we did the whole of the North Island. And here's a side view of it. But I mean, that truck, the magnet on it, was powerful enough. It'll lift those.
So you were just driving around lifting up bits of metal on the road? Is that...
That plus.
That plus.
Yeah. I'm going to show you another picture. Somewhere. No, I can't find it. Maybe it's one of the pieces of paper I threw out. But we magnetically swept the whole of the North Island. For instance, just one example comes to mind. We were up in Whangarei, and we approached the guy that was responsible for the care of all the highways in his particular area.
Yeah.
And so, but we missed him the first time. We knocked on his door, but he was down out of town.
Ah, okay.
So Joy left him a brochure of the work we do, so that when we came back, we said, we'll be back in a year, and we'll call in and we will see you. In a year's time, the receptionist, the same receptionist, when she saw Joy, recognized her, jumped to her feet and said, he wants to see you.
A whole year later.
A whole year later. So Joy went in and had a number of photos of the sort of stuff you pick up, and showed him, and he was just so impressed, he ended up giving her all the state highways in Northland. It was a big job. I was, over 3 weeks I was working on that job, long hours at times.
And living in that caravan that you towed
Yep.
behind you.
Yep. But Joy, I mean, what was she going to do? Twiddle her thumbs? Besides teeing up work for me.
Yeah.
Because we had a roster and we had the names of people that we would work for, airports and yards, depots and streets and everything like that. I can't find the one photo I'd like to show you of the magnetic sweeping, but I can give you an indication. You see, there was a 50-gallon, is that it there? I don't know. And there's maybe the other one. So a 50 gallons on either side of the truck.
Yeah.
And they were connected underneath the tray of the truck with a pipe that was maybe thinner than my
Your pinky
finger. And that ran down to somewhere there.
Somewhere in that bottom bit.
Yeah, and that was on the side. Now my question is, how would you know what areas that you'd done if you had the job of magnetically sweeping the airport runway? No, what do you call it?
Satellites and...
No, it's nothing like that. You didn't have it in those days.
Yeah.
But they had a light bulb moment, and just brilliant. Firstly, the magnet was oil cooled.
Okay.
So you could use it all, you could go all day and all night if that's what you wanted.
Yeah.
So it was an oil cooled magnet, but this pipe that came down to there, and when you turned the tap on, it left a little trail, a water trail. But in the water, you put a dye.
So it leaves some colour behind.
So that if the sunshine evaporated the water, there was still a mark that you followed. And so we just systematically followed each till we'd done the whole runway. Incredible. Good business. It was doing about $50,000 a year when we bought it, and it was doing over 100 when we sold it. And we only had it for 4 years.
Which back then is a lot of money.
Yeah. Well, we then went overseas for about 3 months. Yeah, looked around. So that was amazing.
Yeah.
But getting back to being in the Elim Church here, I know it was in Hamilton, and I noticed that there was really nothing for the men.
Yeah.
There was no activity for the men. The women had lots of different things that they did, but what about the men? And I went to the pastor one day with this on my heart, and I said, I'd like to start up a men's group. And he said, oh, funny that you should mention that. He said, we were just talking about it. And I thought to myself, I guess, they've been talking about it, so I guess they're getting ready to do something like that for the men.
Make one, yeah.
So I backed off, but a year later, nothing had been done.
Nothing.
And so I went to 2 different guys, said, hey, would you like to come and be on my committee for a men's thing? And they both were happy about that.
Yeah.
And then, armed with that, I went to the pastor again, and I said, I've got 2 guys that are prepared to support me, and we'd like to start up something for the men. And this time he agreed. So, man, we did lots of different things. I mean, I was the head deacon of the church, for instance.
Yeah.
Responsible for collections, counting the money, putting it in the safe, distributing communion when we had communion and things like that.
Yeah.
That was one of my responsibilities. I ended up writing the newsletter, Maybe that's where Vasu had seen some of my
You're writing.
handiwork. So there's that. I can't remember them all.
That's all right.
I'm going blank right now. But there was a lot of things. I used to take the guys on trips across to Tauranga to the Promise Keepers.
Yeah.
And I arranged for the Elam Church in Tauranga that we could stay in the church, sleep in the church.
Sleep in the
So,
building.
and I said, could you get some mattresses for us?
Yeah.
So we all had a mattress to sleep on, and we went across with our sleeping bags and that, and went to Promise Keepers, and that was exciting for the men.
Yeah.
On another occasion, we went into camps. I had a camp.
Yeah.
And then we were there for the weekend, and that was a winner. And we go off to do sports, for instance, bonfire. There's a farmer guy that I knew quite well in the church, Indian, and they own 2 farms. And one of them had a swimming pool.
Okay.
And so I arranged for fathers to take their sons to the swimming pool.
Yeah.
And swam until, I don't know, 1:30 or something like that. And then we went back to the parent farm, the main farm.
Yeah.
And then we sort of did all kinds of things, riding motorbikes on the
Dirt bikes
farm.
and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and different games and that. And then the parents all came out, like the wives and members of the congregation. They came out, and we had barbecue tea, which was amazing. And then after that, as it was getting dark, they got the tractor, a big tractor, and a big trailer, and we all climbed onto this trailer, and they took us out to a big pile that he had built for the bonfire.
Yeah.
And when we lit the bonfire, man, it lit up the whole area. And it was just amazing. And we were singing songs and all sorts of things like that. Quite memorable.
Yeah.
I think I've got a photo somewhere, but finding it could be too time consuming.
That's all right.
This one here, this photo here, that's our men's prayer meeting.
Yeah.
So one of the guys approached me, said, Brian, he said, could we start a prayer meeting for the men? And I thought to myself, well, I don't know about that, because just about every night sort of booked up. And I mean, come on, fathers want to be at home with their families a little bit. So I then thought, I said to the guy that made the suggestion, well, how would it be if we started up an early morning prayer meeting?
Yeah.
And he said, yeah, he'd do it. So I bounced it off the guys, and they were enthusiastic. And so we agreed to meet at 6:30 at the church every Wednesday.
Yeah.
And it was amazing, some of the things that happened. We really committed our time to the Lord, and we had various topics that we wanted to pray about. And when we hit that subject, whatever, I mean, it's like the Holy Spirit just descended on us, and we just immersed it with prayer and things like that. And significant things happened as a result of our prayer meeting. And here's the thing, Josiah.
Yeah.
I hope you're still listening to me.
I am.
You are. That prayer meeting is still running today after 25 years.
25 years later.
25 years, still running. But I don't go to that church anymore. I've changed churches.
Yeah.
So,
And 6:30 is very,
It's
very
amazing,
late to get
eh?
up.
amazing. So, and then we'd have breakfast, and someone would bring the milk, and someone would bring Wheat Bix or whatever, and everyone sort of contributed to what we had for our breakfast,
Yeah.
and then they each went their separate way off to work. Amazing, eh?
Good way to start the morning, start the day.
And the men's group was so successful, just so blessed, that when we, in the church on Sunday, our church started to grow because people wanted to be a part of what was going on in the church,
Yeah.
mainly through the men's group.
Men were inviting other men, and then they'd be more involved
Yeah.
in church. And
So I can think of one guy, for instance, he left his church, started coming to our church. So, you know, it was a great place to be and a live place to be. Yeah. So, without looking at all my notes, and it's got a whole lot more stuff that I could talk about,
yeah.
but I think I might close it there. Can I just share one last thing I'd like to do?
Yeah, definitely.
Here it is. So, one day I was praying about, God, give me a prayer for such and such. It was a guy's birthday coming up. And I said, Holy Spirit, give me a prayer, please. And this is the prayer that he gave me. And it's so good in my mind that I've shared it, and it's in my book. The last page of my book is this prayer, a prayer for you.
Yeah.
And it's to all God's children. God's hand is on you. His heart is for you. And his purpose will certainly include you. And then last line, be encouraged. His presence will always protect and guide you. He smiles on you.
Amen.
Don't you think that's amazing?
It's a beautiful one.
Yeah. So there you go, Josiah. That's a part of my life.
Well, thank you for sharing it.
You're most welcome.
I hope it wasn't as
Daunting.
daunting as you were.